Hello everyone. All right, well today we're going to be talking about food labels, and food labels can be really important for planning a healthy diet, so that's how this fits in with chapter 2. Let's dive in. As always, we'll start with our objectives. So number one is I want you to be able, after this presentation, to be able to describe changes in and why the nutrition facts panel on the food label was updated. So food labels were updated about 6 years ago to make things more clear. And I want you to understand why, and what on the label was emphasized for the American public to use. Number two, if given several labels, apply the information on a food label to selecting a healthy food option. Three, use percent daily values. Remember, we talked about DVs, daily values, in our RDI presentation. Use percent DVs to plan a diet with sufficient nutrients, and then differentiate between a nutrient, health, and structure function claim on a label. All right, let's take a look at the new label. So here you can see the label that we see now in the grocery store is a newer label that was changed about 6 years ago. And so everything you see in the grocery store now, and hopefully everything you see in your pantry now, should have this new label, unless you've got some really old food in there. So what's different? Well, with this new label, the calories is bigger and bolder. Before they were about with this font right here, and it was very hard for people to see them. Here, it's what your eyes go to first on the label. The serving sizes were updated. So for example, some serving sizes were made consistent, like for ice cream. Ice cream has to be 2/3 of a cup. Every ice cream manufacturer has to have one serving size be 2/3 of a cup. So you can imagine if this rule weren't in place, some ice cream manufacturers could just put a serving size to be a 1/4 cup. That obviously would have less calories than 2/3 of a cup. And so a person might look at a food label and compare two different ice cream brands and say, oh wow, this one has less calories, when really it's just because the serving size is smaller. So for some foods, the serving size has to be standardized, like for ice cream, at 2/3 of a cup. Let's see, the daily values have been updated. Some of these nutrient levels have been updated to reflect better science and what we know in terms of research. Added sugars. So here you can see the total sugars of a food, and that was always there, but now manufacturers have to include how much of the sugars are natural and how much are added. So you can see out of the 12 grams of sugars, 10 are added. So only 2 were natural in the food. So for example, milk has some natural sugars like lactose. But then if you're buying chocolate milk, there are also going to be added sugars. So this allows you to tell how many grams of the sugars are added versus natural in a food. And then there were changes in nutrients required. Here you can see that food manufacturers have to include amounts of vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium in their food. The actual amounts are declared, so not just the DV, but the actual milligrams or weight of how much of these is in the food type. And there's a new footnote that describes what the percent DV is. So it gives you the definition. So you can also see this in figure 2.17 in your textbook. So here's just a comparison of what the old label looked like, and here's the new label. And again, you can see some of the differences we talked about, especially the word calories and the number of calories in big, bold type. You can see the serving size is also a little bit bigger and bolder, and then we see we've got vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium here. We've got added sugars. So usually below the nutrition facts, you'll see your ingredient list of a food. Here is an example from Yoplait strawberry yogurt, and you'll always see for the ingredients, they're going to be listed in descending order by weight. So the heaviest, so the most grams of a particular item in that food is going to be listed first. So here you can see it's cultured, pasteurized, grade A, reduced fat milk. So milk is the first ingredient, that is the heaviest. And then sugar is the second ingredient, strawberries, modified cornstarch to thicken it, gelatin, etc. And so you can see they're listed from heaviest to lightest. So you always see the ingredients. let's talk again about daily values. So we talked about this previously. We talked about this word generic. This is a generic reference of the amounts of nutrients to consume or not to exceed, and they're used to calculate the percent DV that manufacturers include on the food label. So generic meaning it's going to be this value that should work for everybody. So we can't put the RDA on a label for every single age and gender group, so we pick a generic amount. Again, I used iron as the example last time. Females need more iron, and so iron for everyone is set at that higher level. Okay, vitamin C, for example, will be set at the highest level that someone in a particular age or gender group could possibly need. So we're making sure that everybody gets what they need. So daily values set for energy yielding nutrients and sugar are based on a caloric intake of 2,000 kilocalories. We talked about our AMDRs, so if you remember those from the last presentation, so fat is set at 35%, so no more than 35% of our kilocalories should come from fat. Saturated fat is set at 10%, carbohydrates set at 55%, added sugars is 10%, no more than 10% of our calories should come from added sugars in our food. And then protein is set at 10%. So you can see these are within those AMDRs that we talked about in the last slide presentation. So let's look at the current daily values. These were just updated a few years ago. For total fat, it's 75 grams. So we should not exceed 75 grams in our diet per day of fat. Saturated fat is 20 grams. Cholesterol, 300 milligrams. You don't need to memorize these. This is just an example of what the current daily values are. We can see values for sodium, potassium, carbohydrates. We shouldn't go over 275 grams, and then dietary fiber. Remember, these are important for digestion. We don't actually get calories from fiber. We can't digest it, but we want about 28 grams a day. Okay, so let's take a closer look at these numbers. So I just told you about the daily values, so those were the grams of each particular nutrient that we should get per day. And now we're looking at percentages. So how does that translate to our overall percentages? So here you can see in this bag of goldfish, we're looking at 6 servings per container. And if you have about 55 pieces, you're going to get 1 serving or 30 grams. And in that serving, we get 5 grams of fat. So what percentage of our daily value is this? It tells us that this is 6%. So let's see how this was derived. So we take 5 grams of fat. So we're getting 5 grams of fat in 1 serving of goldfish. And I told you in the last slide that we shouldn't exceed 78 grams. That's our DV for fat. And so 5 grams divided by 78, that shows the percent of fat, of our daily fat that we're getting in a serving of goldfish. So that comes out to 0.064. We're multiplying that by 100 to get a percentage, so 6.4%. And you can see it matches with here. With this number, they rounded down. So you can see in a serving of goldfish, we're getting 6% of our fat. We can look at carbohydrates. Over here, we see, okay, 1 serving of goldfish is 20 grams of carbohydrates. Our DV for carbohydrates is 275 grams. So this is about what we should be getting a day. So in 1 serving of goldfish, what percentage of that are we getting? 20 divided by 275 is 0.072. Multiplied by 100 to get a percentage, we get 7.2%. And great, that matches up with this. So we can see where we're getting these numbers from. Okay, and then cholesterol, we don't want to get, I told you in the last slide, the DV is 300 milligrams, so we don't want to get any more than 300 milligrams. Here in a serving of goldfish, we are getting, let's find the cholesterol, let's see, oh, here it is, 10 milligrams. And so the DV is 300, we have 10 milligrams in 1 serving of goldfish. 10 divided by 300 is 0.033, or 3.3%, and yes, that does match up with what they're telling us. So we're getting 3% of our cholesterol in a serving of goldfish. So it's important for you to just be able to take those numbers that I showed you in the last slide and be able to calculate the percent daily values. And you can see that everything matches up with what this label shows us. Okay, as of 2018, the following must be on the nutrition facts panel. So we need total kilocalories, total fat, and that has to include saturated fat and trans fat. We'll talk all about the different types of fat when we talk about when we get into our lipid section. Cholesterol has to be listed. We know we don't want too much cholesterol in our diet, nor do we want too much sodium in our diet. That has to be listed. And then for total carbohydrates, fiber, total sugars, and then remember the added sugars has to be listed. And then our 4 important vitamins and minerals: vitamin D, potassium, calcium, and iron. We know we need these sufficient amounts of these 4 nutrients in our diets, and so every food label has to contain, even if it doesn't have any, it has to contain the percent DB for these 4 nutrients. All right, so the nutrients of the greatest health concern are on Nutrition Facts panel, and this makes sense. We know that in general in the US, people eat way too much fat, saturated fat and trans fat especially, so the fats that are not very desirable, we eat too many of them. We eat too much sodium and way too much added sugars. We typically, some people are concerned that they don't get enough fiber, calcium, iron, vitamin D, and potassium. So these are things that we need more of. And so the things that we see on our nutrition labels are the things that we want to be mindful about limiting, possibly, and be mindful about getting enough of. Let's talk about claims on labels. Okay, so your book goes into a lot of detail on this. A nutrient claim describes the amount of a specific nutrient in a food. So it can say it has low amounts, high amounts, reduced, it's free of that particular nutrient, so fat-free, for example. And this must align with the FDA standard. There's a great table in your textbook, Table 2.3, that gives the meaning of each of these nutrient claims. All right, let's start with health claims. So health claims have to be described as a relationship between a disease and a nutrient, food, or a food constituent. They must have significant scientific agreement that they're true, so there has to be a lot of research that backs up these claims. A food manufacturer can't say, this food will reduce cholesterol. No. Even if there's scientific research that suggests that it will, they have to say, this food might or may reduce cholesterol. So it may not reduce cholesterol in all people. So the food manufacturers can't use absolute words like this will. They have to say this food may or might reduce cholesterol, for example. And these health claims require FDA approval. Let's talk about structure function claims. These describe how a nutrient affects the body structure or function. No FDA approval is required. The FDA might go after manufacturers if the structure function claim is not accurate, but they don't have to be approved by the FDA. So manufacturers are responsible for ensuring that these claims are accurate and not misleading. And as you can imagine, some manufacturers go after other manufacturers and they say, hey, that claim that you're putting on your food label is not accurate. So there's some sort of policing going on, but it is not approved by the FDA. Let's look at some examples. So low fat. So here you can see low fat granola right on the front, right in big letters here. So what kind of a claim is this? This is a nutrient claim. Fat is a nutrient. It's one of our energy yielding nutrients, and so this is a nutrient claim. In order for a manufacturer to put this on their labels, there must be 3 grams or less of fat per serving. So we know if we turn this around and look at the food label, we'll see less than 3 grams of fat, 3 grams or less of fat per serving in this low-fat granola. So this is a nutrient claim. Let's look at Cheerios. So here you can see Cheerios may, remember I said you can't say Cheerios will reduce your cholesterol, Cheerios may reduce your cholesterol. So this is a health claim. And in order for a manufacturer to say that there's going to be a possible reduction in cholesterol, that food product must have soluble fiber in it. So this is a health claim. And you see this on a lot of oat products because soluble fiber can help reduce your cholesterol. All right, here is a bottle of cranberry juice. So here is the claim. You don't see it right in front, but this claim is on the cranberry juice container, and it says that it may help reduce urinary tract infections. What kind of claim is this? This is a health claim. And any kind of manufacturer that puts this on their food product, their product has to contain a cranberry product. And this is because any food with cranberries can actually reduce the risk of a urinary tract infection. So there is a compound in cranberries that prevents bacteria from adhering to the inside wall of the bladder and the urinary tract. So this is not a cure. If you have a urinary tract infection, you should go to your doctor, get a culture, and then they'll figure out what antibiotic you need. But if you are prone to urinary tract infections, drinking or eating cranberries can lower your risk. So this is a health claim. Okay, and here's a container of Activia yogurt, and you can see it says, with Bifidus regularis, helps regulate your digestive system right there on the front. Helps regulate your digestive system. So what is this? This is a structure function claim. This is not a health claim. And so this container of Activia has the species of bacteria called Bifidus regularis, and this species of bacteria can actually make it all the way through your digestive tract without being killed by the very acidic conditions in our stomach. It can make it all the way to the large intestine, and this bacteria can add to the microflora, the healthy bacteria that's already in our large intestines, which can help with digestion. So this is a probiotic. This is not a health claim. This is a structure function claim. And on an exam, I wouldn't really have you differentiate between a structure function claim and a health claim because you'd need that table to help you to figure out what that is. Okay, so for one of our last slides here, for our last slide, we're going to look at a nutrition facts label, and I want you to be able to answer these questions on a nutrition facts label. So I threw a bunch of questions at you, and let's go through them together. You're going to actually have a quiz where you're going to have to answer these questions on or some of these questions on a package of Annie's mac and cheese. So I'm going to grab my calculator here so that I can work through some of these questions with you. And I would suggest that you get out your phone if it has a calculator on it, or grab a calculator so that we can do this together. All right, so this is a label for pancakes. Here, let's just take a look. So this is a nutrition facts label for a package of pancake mix, dry pancake mix. So you would add, you can see down here, it says as prepared with water, oil, and eggs. This adds per serving, and it gives you what it adds here, but it also tells you right here. So as prepared, this pancake mix, if we have 1 serving of it, it makes 3 pancakes. And we're going to get 230 calories from 1 serving of prepared pancakes. So that's our answer to the first one. How many kilocalories are in 1 serving of prepared pancakes? We want to go here, not here. This is just the dry mix, and most people are not going to eat dry pancake mix. We're going to make it with the oil and the eggs, and we're going to have our serving. So we would get 230 kilocalories. Okay, how many kilocalories are in 9 prepared pancakes? Well, here we need to look at the serving size. So 1 serving is 3 prepared pancakes. So if we had 9, we'd be having 3 servings, because 3 times 3 is 9. And so what we want to do is take this and multiply it by 3. 1 serving is 3 pancakes, 230 kilocalories. 3 servings is 9 pancakes, so let's do 230 multiplied by 9, and I get, oops, that's wrong, 230 multiplied by 9 is 2,070 kilocalories. So if you had 9 pancakes, you would be having 3 servings. Is that right? 230 times, I did that wrong. 230 times 3 equals 690. So the answer to this question is 690. So just to be clear, 9 prepared pancakes. So what we want to do is take this and multiply it by 3, not 9, because 3 pancakes is 1 serving. And we want 3 servings, which is 9 pancakes. If this is how many kilocalories are in 1 serving, we're going to multiply this by 3 and we get 690. So 690 kilocalories are in 9 prepared pancakes. How many grams of fat are in 45 grams of the dry mix? Okay, so let's look at fat. So here we see total fat. And so we've got 3.5 grams as packaged, we've got 10 grams as prepared, and I'm asking you how many grams of fat are in 45 grams of the dry mix. And so here, let's look at the dry mix. 1/3 of a cup is 45 grams, so this is 1 serving, 1/3 of a cup. And how many grams of fat are in this? We see 3.5 grams of fat are in 45 grams of the dry mix. So we're not looking at prepared here, we're just looking at the dry mix because that's what the question asks. How many grams of saturated fat are in 1 serving of prepared pancakes? Well, let's look at 1 serving of prepared pancakes. So we're over here in this column. How many grams of saturated fat? Here we see 1.5 grams are in 1 serving of the prepared pancakes. So the answer to that question is 1.5 grams. What's the percent daily value for saturated fat in 1 serving of the prepared pancakes? So now I'm not asking you how many grams, I'm asking you what's the percent DV. So if we eat 1 serving of the prepared pancakes, we're getting 8% of our daily saturated fat. 8% is the answer to that question. How many grams of protein are in 90 grams of the dry mix? So now we're going to protein, so look down here. And we're going to look how many grams are in 90 grams of the dry mix. So we're looking in this column because we want the dry mix, and I want 90 grams. So here 1 serving size is 45 grams. If I want to know how many grams of protein are in 90 grams, so I want to double the serving because I'm getting 1 serving with 45 grams, and with 2 servings I'm getting 90 grams. So let's see, we go down to proteins and I would have to double this. In 1 serving, there's 45 grams. We multiply that by 2 to get the amount of protein in 90 grams. So we have 8 grams of protein are in 90 grams of the dry mix. So the answer to this question would be 8 grams. Are these pancakes a good source of iron? Let's go down here to iron. Here you can see in the dry mix, we get 0.5 milligrams. That's only 2% of our daily iron intake. Our daily value for iron, and even if we prepare it with the oil and eggs, we're getting 4%. So no, these pancakes are not a good source of iron. They only give us, at best, 4% of the iron that we need in a given day. If you prepare 2 servings of pancakes and ate them all, how much sodium would you get in milligrams? Okay, 2 servings. So we're looking at 1 serving here of prepared pancakes, and so we want to multiply this by 2. So how much sodium would you get in milligrams? Let's take a look at sodium here. We're going to get 410 milligrams in 1 serving. So if you prepared 2 servings, how much sodium would you get? You would just multiply this by 2 and you'd get 820. Okay, and then I'm asking, what is the percent DV, the percent daily value of sodium in those 2 servings? Well, again, we just multiply this by 2. We get 18% of our sodium in 1 serving. If we multiply this by 2, we get 36% of our sodium for the day in 2 servings. So 36% would be in 2 servings. Okay, what is the energy density of 1 serving of this food, unprepared as packaged? Why don't you pause and see if you can do energy density. We did that in a previous presentation. So energy density, what is energy density? Energy density is, remember, do we want a higher energy density or lower? If we're trying to maintain or lose weight, we want a lower energy density. I told you this value ranges from 0 to 9. So energy density is the number of kilocalories the number of kilocalories in one serving of food. So if we look at, and I said unprepared. So we have 160 kilocalories in 45 grams. So I'm going to take 160 and divide that by 45 grams. And so our value would be 3.55. So the energy density in one serving of this food would be 3.55. So I want you to be able to answer these types of questions by looking at a nutrition facts label. I want you to do this for your quiz later in the week. For the, I'm going to give you a nutrition facts label for Annie's macaroni and cheese. You're going to have a column that, or excuse me, you're going to see prepared and unprepared. I want you to look down here in that label because that'll show you the values for the mac and cheese when it's prepared. So go through this slide again and make sure you can do these calculations, and you should be good to go for the quiz.